For $20,000 less than the price of a half-decent Sprinter van, you can buy a great alternative that has way more space for van conversion and can take a beating on the road. So why is everyone obsessed with the Mercedes Sprinter? If you're looking to buy your first van for van life or planning your first van build, then we're going to show you why not to buy a Sprinter and what to buy instead. Let's start by talking about some of the biggest problems with buying a Mercedes Sprinter for van life. A few years ago, we bought a 2018 Mercedes Sprinter and built a beautiful camper van conversion that took us across Europe for 2 years. But beauty turned out to be skin deep, and we ended up with 2 major repair bills that totaled almost $6,000. Our van had a perfect maintenance history, so what went wrong? In a nutshell, condensation from the inside of the windshield was able to drip into the computer that regulates the automatic transmission. Unfortunately, computers and water don't get along, and both times the transmission computer ended up being replaced with a younger model. The worst part, aside from the repair bill of course, is that Mercedes knew about this problem all along and chose not to fix it. To rub salt into the wound, the fix is ridiculously simple. All you have to do is put a plastic sleeve over the computer. I'm not even joking, that is the official solution. Something that probably cost Mercedes less than $1 to make, and they decided that it wasn't worth the hassle. If Mercedes can't be bothered to fix an issue that costs them peanuts, then you have to wonder where else they cut corners. Even if you manage to avoid this issue, there's a good chance that you'll be faced with other expensive repair bills, especially as your mileage begins to creep past 125,000 miles. You might think that's a small price to pay because the Sprinter comes with a diesel engine, and it's common knowledge that diesels are reliable. They can be, but diesel engines were one of the very first victims of enshittification. Enshittification is when good products are gradually reduced in quality until they become junk. A modern diesel engine is more fragile than an actor's ego. And it's all because of the complex emissions equipment that's been slapped on over the years. Now, don't get me wrong, reducing emissions is a good thing, and diesel engines have also become very powerful with the addition of turbochargers. But having to constantly make replacement parts is only good for Mercedes' wallet and not the environment. So far, so bad. But don't worry, the Sprinter isn't done taking a dump on your Instagram dreams just yet.
Shitter was full!
When something does eventually go wrong, you'll obviously need to take it to a mechanic, but not just any old wrench turner. Your mechanic has to be specialized in repairing small, complex turbo diesel engines that were engineered with German efficiency to be a pain in the behind to work on. In North America, chances are you're not going to find that unicorn at your corner workshop, and you'll be stuck taking your Sprinter to a Mercedes dealership that can service vans. Those are harder to find than an honest politician.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Since the Mercedes parts warehouse is based in Germany, there's also a good chance that you'll be told to leave your house on wheels with the dealership for a couple of weeks until they can get the parts you need delivered. When your van is finally ready, they'll offer you a free coffee before handing you a bill that feels like a kick in the crotch. Not only will you be paying premium rates for Mercedes labor, but you'll also be paying a premium for any parts that you need to order. Now that I've destroyed all your Sprinter ownership dreams and probably eliminated any chance of ever becoming a Mercedes ambassador, it's time to talk about the solution. Don't buy a Sprinter. No, I'm joking. I won't leave you hanging like that. The obvious solution would be to buy a Ford Transit or a Ram ProMaster instead. And we do have a whole van comparison video that you can watch afterwards. But maybe the best van for van life isn't actually a cargo van. Let me present you with the humble box truck. Yes, the same truck you rented from U-Haul when your parents kicked you out of their basement. It's not as sexy as the Mercedes, but despite the name, box trucks are technically still vans. So you can still hang out with all the cool van life kids in your box truck camper as long as they accept your new look. There are several awesome things about box trucks, but the biggest reason to buy one is how much money you save versus buying a Mercedes Sprinter. You can easily get a 2020 or newer Ford E350 or 450 box truck with less than 100,000 miles on it for around $20,000. To get a similar Mercedes Sprinter in the most popular 170-inch wheelbase, you would have to spend at least $35,000 to $40,000. That's a huge $15,000 to $20,000 difference between the two. Those savings alone would easily pay for several epic laps around the US and Canada. You can also spend as little as $5,000 on a box truck if you're okay buying an older and higher mileage one. But if you are doing that, you should inspect it extremely carefully and leave money aside for repairs. There are box trucks based on the Transit and the Sprinter vans as well. But for the sake of this video, we're going to be focusing on the heavy-duty box trucks. This is because they tend to be cheaper, more durable, and can carry more weight. Let me know in the comments if you would ever consider buying a box truck over a cargo van. Not only will you save money when buying a box truck, but the interior space of the box truck will also save you both time and money. That sounds a little bit odd, so let me explain. You can absolutely turn a Sprinter into a cozy tiny home. We've done it ourselves, but the emphasis is very much on tiny, and it's a giant pain to do so. That's because there are so many curves and angles in the Sprinter, and any cargo van really, that you have to somehow find solutions for working around. The box truck is the opposite. With straight walls and an almost flat ceiling, building an amazing tiny home in a box truck is about as easy as it gets. That means you get to spend less time building and more time actually traveling around in your new RV. This is especially important if it's your first time building a van. Even with zero DIY skills, you could build an amazing conversion in a box truck. We're currently converting our third van, and we've spent hundreds of hours researching and obsessing over the best products to buy for every stage of the build. To help save your sanity and hours of research, we've organized all the products that we recommend for a van conversion into an Amazon storefront. If you click on the link or QR code, you'll see all the different stages of an RV conversion. In each stage, we've listed the products that we used to complete that part of the build. Apart from making it easy to convert, the straight walls in a box truck will also give you a ton more space to work with. Obviously, the exact dimensions are going to depend on the vehicle that you buy. But if you're buying a used 16-foot Penske model, like this one for example, you can expect the following approximate interior dimensions. A height of 6 foot 6 inches, width of 7 foot 7 inches, and a length of 16 feet. The dimension that excites me the most out of all of those is the width. First of all, it means that you can build a sideways bed that actually fits someone over 6 feet. You can technically achieve that in the Sprinter by installing flares like we did. But in the US, FlareSpace will charge you a cool $1,800 for their flares, and that's before install costs. If you need someone to install 2 of them for you, the install cost could easily run you between $1,500 to $2,000, including painting them to match your van body. So, if you're tall, or you want space to stretch out, then the spacious interior of a box truck will save you almost $4,000 in addition versus a Sprinter. Not only do you save money with the straight walls and ample interior dimensions, but the huge flat exterior walls in your box truck camper are also going to save you hundreds of dollars. By the time you've installed some fans on your roof, space becomes quite constrained. In addition, the narrow van body severely limits the size of solar panels that you can fit. That's why people often end up buying the overpriced RV solar panels. I say overpriced because they charge over $200 for a 200-watt panel. But if you buy a residential solar panel, you can get 450 watts for around $155. That's more than double the power generation for $50 less. We managed to squeeze a residential panel onto our 144-inch Sprinter roof, and it performed flawlessly for the 2 years that we had it. The larger panels also save you time and money in wiring because you don't have to install anywhere near as many to get the same output. With an almost 8-foot wide roof on the box truck, you can easily fit these residential panels sideways. If you just create your own roof rail / mounting system out of 80/20, you could have a massive amount of solar capacity on the roof of your box truck conversion for a fraction of the cost and hassle compared to RV solar panels. If you really wanted to, you could even still fit a rooftop deck for those mandatory Instagram photos. Another huge advantage of the flat exterior walls is the space that you have to install windows. I know some people love the stealth look, but windows help make a small space feel a lot bigger. They also make a tiny space feel a lot more livable. The straight flat walls will make cutting out and installing RV windows really easy. You'll also have a lot more flexibility with window placement than you would in a van, since the structural beams in a box truck are more spaced out. Weight is a big worry when you're converting your van. And if you're not careful, it's easy to exceed the carrying capacity of your vehicle, which is not safe. I have watched so many van life vloggers talk about how their vans ended up being overweight. To compensate for their maxed out rear springs and to make the van drivable, they just install heavy duty bump stops. But that's not really a proper solution. All you're doing is masking the symptoms. Being overweight is not just a problem for DIY conversions, by the way. If you have a Class B RV, there's a very good chance that it's overweight by the time you actually load it up with everything that you need for a trip. With a box truck camper, you can wave goodbye to being stressed about your weight. Well, at least the weight of your RV. With a payload capacity of over 4,000 pounds, you would really have to go nuts with your build to exceed that. To put that number into perspective, we managed to keep the weight of our Sprinter conversion to just under 1,800 pounds. But that was our second van build, so we had gained a lot of confidence and experience. The load capacity of a box truck gives you a huge amount of creative freedom to add all the elements that you dreamed of. From solid wood floors and ceilings to a spacious shower, along with a huge water tank. Just remember, the heavier your build is, the more fuel that you'll have to use in order to move it along the road. If you've got any questions about buying a vehicle to turn into a tiny home on wheels, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer every single one. If you hate buying cars and just want to buy one durable vehicle to convert that you can use for the next 10 plus years, then this next topic is for you. All modern vans, like the Sprinter, Transit, and ProMaster, are built on a unibody chassis, the same way that most small to medium SUVs are built. This helps keep the vans light, as well as making them easy and comfortable to drive. But an RV conversion is a very heavy, constant load. This means that every part of the van has to work very hard, from the engine to the suspension and the brakes. In contrast, box trucks are built on heavy-duty truck frames. The front end might look like a van, but the rest of the box truck is essentially a heavy-duty pickup truck. These vehicles are specifically engineered to carry heavy loads all day long and take a beating in their process. As long as you take care of it and stop it from rusting out, you can expect a reliable vehicle for many years. We've already talked about how expensive the Sprinter is to repair. In comparison, box trucks are as opposite as possible. Because box trucks are based on heavy-duty trucks, of which millions have been sold, you should never have issues getting parts for these vehicles. This shared commonality also means that any neighborhood mechanic will be able to work on your truck without needing special diagnostic software or tools. Because these vans are so simple, you can also work on them yourself if you're handy with tools or you've got a good friend who can help you. The last big savings I want to talk about is the reliability of some of the engines in these box trucks. If you buy a 2020 or newer E350 or E450 box truck, you're getting Ford's 7.3-liter V8 engine. This engine is one of the few things that the internet can actually agree on. And the verdict is that it's one of the best modern truck engines ever made. We actually had this engine in our 2020 Ford F350. It's the only car we've ever factory ordered, and I honestly still regret selling it a little bit. It did an incredible job hauling the massive Bigfoot truck camper that we put on the back of it. If you're not into cars or trucks, all you need to know is that this engine is designed to be extremely strong, simple to maintain, and most importantly, under stressed. Let me put it in a different way. The Sprinter engine, especially the new 4-cylinder diesel engines, are like Craig from Parks and Rec.
You have to show me you can bring it down a notch.
I'll bring it down 1,000 notches if I have to!
It's high-strung and on the verge of losing it. In contrast, the 7.3-liter V8 in the box truck is like Ron Swanson. It's got everything under control and wants as little government oversight as possible. With more interior space, higher durability, and easy repairability, you might think that buying a box truck is a slam dunk. And it can be for the right person. But there are a few downsides to the box trucks as well. First of all, the interiors are extremely outdated, and they haven't changed in over a decade. That also means they're very sturdy and don't have a lot of electronic gizmos that'll break. But you'll have to add your own infotainment system if that's important. The driving position in the box trucks is also very limited because you have a wall almost right behind the seats. Depending on your body proportions, it might be okay or it might be horribly uncomfortable. But you don't have a lot of adjustments to improve it, so make sure that you do a long test drive to see if it actually works for you. Because the box trucks are based on a very old design, you can also expect the cab to be a lot noisier than in a modern van. This is partially because there wasn't much sound deadening engineered into the vans in the first place, but also because the engine actually extends into the cab. You can combat this by adding extra sound deadening materials. For example, adding a thick layer of cork to the back wall of the van would not only look really good, but also help a lot with sound. The huge space you gain on the interior obviously also means that a box truck is going to be a bigger vehicle to maneuver than a van. If you're sticking to the US or Canada, this really isn't a huge deal as you can almost always find a big enough spot to park in. The 7.3-liter V8 might be one of the best modern engines, but few things in life are perfect, and this engine does have a couple of flaws. On the very early examples of this engine, some of them got bad wiring harnesses from the factory. Chances are that's already been replaced on a used box truck, and if not, it's a very cheap fix. The other intermittent issue with this engine is lifter failure. Now, you don't need to know what a lifter is, just that there are a few steps you can take to prevent it from happening. First off, make sure you change the oil every 5,000 miles or 10,000 kilometers and use full synthetic oil. Next up is to follow the technical service bulletin. This involves reprogramming the engine computer to increase the idle RPM of the engine. Doing this should help more oil reach the lifters at idle. There are a few other tips that exceed the scope of this video, but if you are buying one, I would spend some time reading through the comments on any 7.3-liter V8 engine teardown videos that you can find. None of the items above are deal breakers, but they are all compromises that you have to make in order to get all the benefits of a box truck. The sharp-eyed amongst you have probably noticed a big difference between buying a cargo van and a box truck. And that is the lack of a pass-through between the cab and the box. Fear not. If you've got the ability to cut out and install a window or a fan, then you can also install a pass-through. The first step is to buy a door or even a cargo hatch that is small enough to not exceed the height of the back of the van cab. Depending on your budget, you can buy a really high quality door from Turn Overland, or you can buy a cheaper one from Amazon. You'll also need a piece of accordion boot seal that fits the dimensions of your door and is wide enough to bridge the gap between the box and the van. If you search box truck pass-through on YouTube, you'll find several helpful videos, but here's a high-level overview of how to do it. The first step is obviously to choose and buy the door that you want. Once you've got your door, you can then create a cardboard template in order to draw your cut lines. The next step is to drill a pilot hole through both the box and van wall simultaneously, making sure that the hole is large enough for your saw blade to fit through. Now it's time for the big job. Using something like a Sawzall with a new high-quality blade, you're going to follow your cut line and cut through both walls simultaneously. This ensures that you don't end up being misaligned. Cutting from the box side will be the easiest as you have a lot more space to maneuver. Once you have your hole cut, it's time to install the door. Every model will be different, so make sure you follow the specific instructions. With the door in place, you can now install the accordion boot. If the van wall isn't thick enough for the accordion seal to clip onto, you can just cut out and install a piece of plastic to make that thicker. To help you save time and money, check out our brutally honest advice in the latest video right here.